Okay, so picture this. April 22nd, 2025. You're in Baisaran Valley near Pahalgam in Kashmir. People call it mini Switzerland, right?
Right, and for good reason.
Mm.
Those meadows, the pine trees, it's genuinely stunning. Breathtaking, really.
Totally. Just pure, serene beauty. But then imagine that exact peaceful scene just shattered by horrific violence.
It's a chilling thought. And the story that came out of it, well, it's almost hard to believe.
It really is the core of it. A family from Kerala, 11 people, narrowly escaping a deadly terror attack. And the reason? A plate of mutton Rogan Josh that was way, way too salty.
It sounds like something out of a movie, doesn't it? Too much salt, saving lives. It's a bizarre twist of fate if ever there was one.
So let's talk about the family. Lavanya Albee, she's an entrepreneur from Kannur, runs Lavi's Designs, a very spirited person by all accounts.
And she's with her husband, Albie George. He's with HDFC Bank, and their 3 kids.
Right, Anushka, Avantika, and Anantika. Plus, Albie's parents were along, and Lavanya's cousin Leslie and her family from Ernakulam, a big family holiday.
11 of them, all set for this amazing Kashmir experience they'd been planning.
They had arrived a few days earlier, April 19th, I think.
Yeah, the 19th.
Right.
And they jumped right into sightseeing, did the whole circuit, Gulmarg, Sonamarg, Dal Lake.
Packed schedule. And apparently they were so keen to see everything, they actually skipped lunch a couple of times because the restaurants were just rammed.
Yeah, which is interesting, you know? That initial efficiency, that drive to see it all, it contrasts so much with what happened later. That forced slowdown.
So fast forward to the 22nd. They're in Pahalgam, about 80 clicks from Srinagar. Their main goal for the day, Baisaran Valley.
The mini Switzerland. That was the plan. Get up there, soak in the views.
But first, Albie, the husband, suggests they eat something, even though they weren't starting, apparently.
Right, kind of breaking their recent pattern of skipping lunch. He just felt like they should eat first.
So they find this place, the Moonwalk Restaurant. And crucially, it wasn't super busy like the others.
Okay, so they get seated easily, less crowded. Seems like a good choice at the time.
Exactly. And they decide to order mutton Rogan Josh, when in Kashmir.
Absolutely. It's the quintessential dish. You'd expect something really flavorful, rich, comforting.
Nope. What arrived was, Lavanya described it brilliantly. She said it was like chewing on a science experiment gone wrong.
Oh, wow. That bad.
Apparently incredibly salty, just inedible, and mostly bone, not much meat. Just a total letdown.
Yikes. Not the authentic Kashmiri experience they were hoping for then.
Not at all. But here's where it gets interesting. The staff, especially the owner, they didn't just brush it off. He tasted it himself and was like horrified.
Really?
Yeah, genuinely mortified. He absolutely insisted on making them a completely fresh batch. Said he couldn't let them leave thinking that was proper Kashmiri food.
That's actually quite something. That pride in their cuisine, that hospitality, even after a mistake.
It is, isn't it? But the family, remember, they were kind of on a schedule. They tried to say, no, it's okay, really, but the owner wouldn't hear of it.
So they had to wait.
They had to wait for almost an hour and a half, just sitting there, delayed because of salty Rogan Josh. Imagine the slight frustration building up.
90 minutes. That's a huge chunk of time when you're trying to sightsee. What probably felt like a real pain at the time.
Exactly. Unknowingly, it was creating this massive buffer. So eventually, the new Rogan Josh arrives. It's good this time. Faith restored, maybe.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah.
So they finally eat, chat a bit with the staff, some locals.
And then they set off again, finally heading towards Baisaran Valley, which is only like 2 kilometers away at this point, back on track.
Okay, so the delay's over. They're heading up the path towards the valley.
And then suddenly, things get really weird, really scary. They see this big group of horses, maybe 15, 20 of them, just thundering down the path towards them, panicked.
Whoa. Horses don't just do that. Something must have spooked them badly up ahead. That's an immediate red flag.
Huge red flag. And right behind the horses, people, tourists running, scrambling into taxis that were speeding away from Baisaran. They even saw an ambulance coming down. Total chaos.
Just absolute panic unfolding right in front of them. Fleeing tourists, emergency vehicles. You'd know instantly something terrible was happening.
Their driver tried to sort of, calm them down. Oh, it happens sometimes. Maybe a minor incident.
Downplaying it.
Yeah, but the family wasn't buying it. Lavanya said their Bollywood thriller senses were tingling. They just knew instinctively this was serious.
That gut feeling, you see that kind of panic, you trust your instincts, right?
Absolutely. So they made a snap decision, forget Baisaran. They told the driver to turn around, detour somewhere else.
Smart move. Avoid the chaos.
They ended up going to this quiet little lake nearby, took some photos, tried to salvage that part of the day, still completely unaware of the horror unfolding just up the road.
Taking pictures by a peaceful lake while just kilometers away.
Yeah.
It's surreal to even think about
Yeah.
that contrast.
It wasn't until they got back to their resort in Pahalgam connected to the Wi-Fi, then their phones just exploded.
Oh, God. The messages must have flooded in.
Missed calls, frantic texts from family back home in Kerala. Are you okay? Heard about the attack in Baisaran? The news was breaking.
And that's when it hits them. The full weight of it. The realization of what they just missed. The shock must have been immense.
It's unimaginable. So what actually did happen up there? Reports indicate around 2:30 p.m., 5 or 6 attackers, dressed in military fatigues, heavily armed.
M4s, AK-47s, apparently.
Yeah.
They came out of the forest surrounding the valley.
And Baisaran was packed. Maybe 1,000, 1,500 tourists just enjoying the afternoon. A perfect day turned into hell.
And these attackers, later identified as being from the Resistance Front or TRF.
Which is seen as an offshoot of Lashkar-e-Taiba.
Right. They just opened fire. Indiscriminately at first. Eyewitnesses described sheer terror, people running, screaming, bodies falling.
Horrific. Just utter chaos and violence tearing through that beautiful place.
And then some truly chilling details emerged. Accounts that they were targeting non-Muslim male tourists specifically.
Asking names, religion, demanding they recite Islamic verses, killing those who couldn't. It's sickening.
Absolutely sickening. And reports also mentioned a local Muslim resident was killed, apparently trying to shield some tourists or intervene. Incredible bravery, but just tragic.
The final toll was devastating. 26 dead.
26 lives lost. Mostly tourists from all over India. Karnataka, Kerala. A Navy officer, Lieutenant Vinay Narwal, was among them.
Yeah, and that 65-year-old from Kerala, N. Ramachandran, plus 2 foreign tourists, one from Nepal, one from the UAE, and the local man who tried to help.
And over 20 injured on top of that. Just a staggering loss of life.
The TRF claimed responsibility pretty quickly. Their justification, or their stated motive, was tied to opposing demographic changes in Kashmir after Article 370 was revoked.
Right, the revocation back in 2019 that removed Jammu and Kashmir's special status. It's a hugely complex political issue, and groups like TRF frame their violence within that context, opposing closer integration with India.
It's important context, even though it obviously doesn't excuse the violence in any way.
Absolutely not. It just shows the political grievances, however warped, that fuel this kind of terror.
The aftermath was, as you'd expect, intense. Huge security crackdown, forces searching for the militants who reportedly fled back into the forests.
And diplomatic fallout, too, wasn't there? India suspended the Indus Waters Treaty discussions, recalled diplomats from Pakistan, even closed the Attari-Wagah border temporarily. Prime Minister Modi vowed a strong response.
Yeah, major repercussions. But back at the resort, there's Lavanya and her family processing this near miss, and the resort staff. They were amazing, apparently.
How so?
Told them to stay inside, lock down the place essentially, even brought in extra security guards just for the resort, really looked after them.
That's incredible kindness in the middle of such fear and uncertainty, people stepping up.
And get this, the owner of the Moonwalk restaurant, the salty Rogan Josh guy.
Yeah.
He actually called the resort to check if the family was okay.
No way. After the Whole Food incident.
Yes. He'd heard about the attack and worried about them. Just a small thing, but it speaks volumes, doesn't it? That human connection.
It really does. It connects back to that delay again, doesn't it? That interaction, that owner's pride. It all played a part.
They eventually spent 2 very tense days stuck in Srinagar before finally getting a flight home to Kerala on the 25th. The relief must have been huge, but the trauma.
Oh, undoubtedly. That experience would stay with you forever. The what-ifs.
And this attack, it wasn't just about the victims and this one family's escape. It was a massive blow to Kashmir itself.
Yeah, especially the tourism industry. They'd had a couple of good years, visitor numbers were up. Something like this just creates so much fear.
It cripples the livelihoods of so many ordinary Kashmiris who depend on tourism. Just heartbreaking for the region.
Lavanya mentioned how the locals they spoke to afterwards were just devastated. Kept saying things like, this isn't our Kashmir.
Exactly. There were protests, condemnations, people saying this violence betrays Kashmiriyat.
That tradition of hospitality and coexistence. You had religious leaders like Mirvaz Umar Farooq leading prayers, moments of silence, a real sense of collective grief and rejection of the violence.
It shows the disconnect, doesn't it, between the angs of these terror groups and the feelings of many ordinary people there. The family really stressed how kind most people were to them.
And they worried, didn't they, that if tourism dries up because of fear, it harms the very people who showed them kindness. A vicious cycle.
It's tragic, and, their story wasn't the only near miss that day.
Really? Others too.
Yeah, reports mention some tourists from Maharashtra who got delayed because they couldn't get ponies quickly enough to go up to Baisaran.
Just couldn't get the horses in time.
And a couple from Jaipur who apparently spent a bit too long enjoying some pilpuri somewhere else. Even some judges from the Kerala High Court were nearby but hadn't gone up yet.
Wow. Multiple instances of small delays, random choices, keeping people out of harm's way. It's uncanny.
It really makes you think about chance, fate, whatever you want to call it, those tiny, seemingly meaningless moments.
But it also, inevitably, brings up the security questions again. How did this happen? In such a popular tourist spot.
Right. Baisaran seems quite exposed, accessible mainly by foot or pony through those forests. There were clearly security gaps. Authorities released sketches later. Asif Fauji, Suleiman Shah, Abu Talha linked to Laracity.
But the questions remain about intelligence, prevention, how to stop it happening again. That's the critical challenge.
Absolutely critical. But threading through this whole awful event is this one single bizarre detail we keep coming back to.
The salty Rogan Josh.
The ridiculously, inedibly salty Rogan Josh that caused an hour-and-a-half delay. It's the anchor of their survival story.
It's just the ultimate example of how something seemingly bad, an inconvenience, a culinary failure, can have the most profoundly positive, life-saving outcome. It messes with your head a bit.
It really does. Makes you think about how fragile life is, how random events can just shift everything. Lavagna's comment about the extra salt being added just for us.
Yeah.
It's haunting, but also kind of profound, finding meaning in it.
It's a coping mechanism, perhaps, trying to make sense of the sheer, terrifying randomness of it all, to find some narrative, some reason, however strange.
It was an absolute tragedy, no question. Our thoughts are truly with everyone affected, the families who lost loved ones, the people of Kashmir dealing with this.
Definitely. But amidst the horror, you have this story of survival and stories of kindness from the resort staff, even the restaurant owner, showing that resilience.
And Lavanya saying that despite it all, they still feel a connection to Kashmir, to the place and its people. That's quite powerful.
It is. It suggests the violence didn't erase the beauty or the positive human connections they experienced. It didn't let the terrorists win in that sense.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Think about those little delays, those annoyances in your day. That flat tire, the slow service, the meeting that ran late.
You just never know, do you? Maybe it put you on a slightly different path, kept you away from something unseen.
Has something like that ever happened to you? A negative turn that ended up being, well, maybe not life-saving, but surprisingly beneficial. It's a strange thing to ponder, isn't it?
It is. Worth considering. And if you want to understand more about the Baisaran attack and the situation in Kashmir, there's obviously a lot more information available through news reports and analysis.